Hey, Cotton.
What is it, Huntsman?
Can you massage my knees?
Sorry, what?
My knees. Can you massage them?
Why on earth would I do that?
Well, I've heard there's some action kicking up in another part of the world, and I'm considering traveling over to join in. But other than a couple of small missions, I've been sitting down for the last 40 years, give or take,
So your knees are a little bit,
Yeah, my knees, you see.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, every day that passes has us one day closer to the release of Monster Hunter Rise. And with each day, I have more questions, some of which because I'm staying mostly spoiler-free, so keep in mind that my information may have a few holes compared to yours if you've been keeping fully up to date with Monster Hunter Rise news, but other questions simply because we just haven't been given these answers before. How many monsters are in this game? How many of them do we not even know about yet? How many of those that we don't know about are new, and how many are still more returning monsters that we haven't even heard of being in the game yet? Well, if the answer is anything more than 0, then this list might matter. Well, at least for me, because this is a bit more of a personal opinion list. I've mentioned the 5 monsters that I think should be in Rise logically before, but this is more of just my sensibilities with what I like in Monster Hunter, and before you say it, yes, I'm biased. I might even be triest, because goddamn there are 5 monsters that I need to be in Monster Hunter Rise. And they're these ones. So without further ado, let's begin with
Number 5. Gypceros.
Okay, I know this is a super weird pick, but hear me out on this. I've said it before with Plesioth 2, I think that there are a few monsters in this series that the community generally doesn't like that would be received much better if they were remade in the way that the series works now. And Gypceros is totally on that list for me as well. He is so wonderfully quirky, totally unique, the original Flash Raptor, but with item stealing, playing dead, and the lore implications of his skin being what Nerscylla wears. He holds a very interesting and unique place as a creature, and there is a lot of good reasoning that he exists, but I think loads of people just never necessarily gave him a fair shake. And what better way to fix that than to bring him back in Monster Hunter Rise? Yes, there are arguably monsters that logically deserve to be a returning monster in a slot more than Gypceros, but for my personal list, I'd absolutely love to see Gypceros re-realized in this new style of hunting. A whole new generation of hunters introduced to his funny little gimmicks. A whole wave of people experiencing the play dead mechanic for the first time in their varying reactions. He's great, totally underrated, and as far as I'm concerned, Gypceros needs to be in Monster Hunter Rise.
Number 4.
I've mastered the ability of standing so incredibly still that I've become invisible to the eye.
Camelios.
Oh god, and why talk about Camelios? He's already been shown for long periods of time in every single bit of promotional material released about the game so far. So obviously he's coming. I know, we've seen him. But does that mean he's really there? Like he's really in it, head in the game? Jokes aside, Camelios returning would be absolutely lovely for a number of reasons. Firstly, for a similar reason to Gypceros, he is quite unique. Nothing else being quite like him in shape or concept in the series, even though Pookie does share a couple of tiny features. Camelios is still the king of the long sticky tongue, as he literally steals your items with it, and honestly more than anything else, I truly wish to see invisibility implemented in a new Monster Hunter game, especially Camelios' mist-based invisibility, considering the general style of movement and hunting has been so different between World and Rise and their remakes of the returning fights that they brought in from older games. I have to imagine that the first monster to bring invisibility back into the series will be quite the event, as I imagine that it will be one of the more interesting visual effects to have in the whole series, not to mention the possibilities of changing how it works functionally for this new era of the series, potentially making it active more often, but still have the tiniest, most slightly visible outline to be more accurate to how real-life camouflage would work. I don't know exactly how they would handle it, but I know that I would love to see them handle it and give us an invisible monster in this new system. No matter how it would be handled, I can't imagine myself not adoring a creature who brings this mechanic into this newer era of the series.
Number 3.
See this tentacle? It's actually shorter than all my other tentacles. But you can't really tell, especially when I twirl them like this.
Yamatsukami.
I've said it before and I will say it again and again and again because I fully intend to die on this hill. Yamatsukami is straight up my favorite monster in the whole series that I've never gotten to fight. It's incredible to me that a monster can be in my top 10 monsters in the entire series, and I've never even played a Monster Hunter game where he was fightable, but there's just something about his concept, the way he is presented, what he is based upon, and how he is described that makes me absolutely love this giant nutrient-filled tentacle bag. Firstly, he looks like he's just so full of air that if you put any more air in him, he would pop, and I find that hilarious. But he also manages to control this with enough fluidity to fly from place to place as a means of travel and transport, rather than just as a natural bodily function he can't control. The versions of Yamatsukami that we have seen in the quests before are actually generally considered to be relatively young members of the species, which opens up the idea of a much bigger one in the future if they wanted to give one its own siege level quest in Monster Hunter Rise with a unique arena again, or they could bring back the reasonably medium-sized octopus boy and even just have him float around the regular maps. Like, imagine if you're walking around the shrine rooms and you just see a giant circular shadow encroaching over you. You look up and bam, a giant forest-covered octopus dragon floating around through the mountains. He's also got that whole non-aggressive thing going on for him that I love. One thing that I've noticed about myself is I generally tend to have a preference for monsters who aren't out to cause harm to others, ones that aren't overly aggressive or territorial or violent, ones who just happen to have a lifestyle that accidentally disrupts enough to make hunters decide to go out and hunt them. In Yamatsukami's case, it's the fact that he literally swallows entire ecosystems on occasion, but it's not his fault. He just needs to feed on the nutritious soil underneath that ecosystems. He needs to get it in his mouth somehow. Gosh, why does everyone want to kill such a lovable, peaceful creature?
Number 2.
This is what I do. I sit on you, sit on you, sit on you.
Seltas Queen.
And this is one that I would really love to see redesigned for the modern hunting style with the fluidity of movement that we have now. A fight designed around two large monsters like this could have a lot more freedom of creativity than it did before in the previous movement system. The way that these two could move, the way that they even function as a base, interacting with each other frequently. What if it was treated as if Seltas is, I don't know, wyvern riding the Seltas Queen if they happen to come back in Rise and he mounts her the same way that he used to? What if in Rise, you can wyvern ride Seltas and then use the Seltas to mount the Seltas Queen, thus creating a wyvern riding chain, where you are sitting on the back of the Seltas who is sitting on the back of the Seltas Queen. That shit would be crazy, but in the best of ways, because that affects so little of your overall gameplay experience unless you want it to. And for the people who would want something as silly as that, what literally amounts to being a hat on a hat on a hat, that would be such a fantastic mechanic, such a ridiculous interaction. Away from the ridiculous stuff and back on track though, this monster is just one that I would totally love to see return regardless of potential wyvern riding gimmickry, because of the pure quality of the concept. Such a unique monster, not really replicated in any way by another member of the Monster Hunter roster, and with such an interesting way of fighting, could totally evolve into something truly memorable in Monster Hunter Rise, the same way that Seltas Queen was memorable for me the first time I fought her in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. It's one of those moments that I can accurately just pull out of the back of my head and say, this is when my love of the series became deeper. Obviously, my love has been developed slowly over time, and there's tons and tons and tons of these moments like this, but it's very specific times like this that I'm very aware that I can stop and just say, yeah, absolutely. My opinion of the series as a whole became better, became higher because of this moment, because of this first time that I fought this monster, the Seltas Queen. It's just such an interesting concept with such beautiful execution. I just seriously hope that she returns. She needs to, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Number 1.
I also remembered, just as I was cutting this, that I'm supposed to be able to eat tree bark.
Duramboros.
Given how much emphasis I have put on this list being my personal opinion, totally biased, are you really surprised? Drambros is straight up my favorite monster in the entire Monster Hunter series. He is lovely. He has that peaceful nature I was talking about earlier with how he isn't even a carnivore. He eats tree bark on a daily basis, and he has no interest in hurting anyone who doesn't try to hurt him first, unless they get too close to his tree, I guess. I'm fully willing to admit that this one is boosted by my opinion of him, but I do also think he would be incredible to fight with the whole verticality aspect to Monster Hunter Rise. Think about attacks like Mizitsune in the demo, with the whole horizontal sliding beam, but imagine if it kept going back and forth instead of just one way, one time. That is essentially the feeling of Durambros spinning his tail to wind up his bigger attacks in front of you. Imagine if in Rise, if Durambros was in this game, when doing his spinning move, if you wire bug from the right place at the right angle, you just fly over his spinning tail and into the safe zone where you can stand close to his body and attack him. Just a tiny little extra skill move you can pull off for more damage. Sure, you can roll through this in his old fight as is anyways, but maybe you can't do that in Rise. Maybe make that a wire bug only thing, just to, emphasize the wire bug. The point being, he has a fight with a lot of horizontal movement involved, and a good little extra bit of vertical shenanigans too, where he flings himself into the air in varying ways to land on you. All of this, to me, amounts to a fight that could be absolutely incredible if redesigned around the wire bug specifically, even regardless of the fact that he is my favorite monster. But then, of course, there is also the part where he is my favorite monster with his lovable little face, so yeah, he's in this spot, okay? He's in this spot. I say he's in this spot. It's my list. It's my spot. It's his spot, okay? Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been my list of the top 5 monsters I need in Monster Hunter Rise. Do you agree with any of the monsters that I brought up here? Are there any monsters that I didn't mention that you think would be better suited to a slot in Monster Hunter Rise? Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.